excited to be a part of this. I have, over the years, as this has grown, one of the things I think that's been missing from what I've done for so long, which is pro football, is an ability to develop younger players, to get them ready, because it's just so hard to do that. And I've been so intrigued by how that's being done. And I really respect the way that they've done this with the UFL. And I'm excited to do that. I think we bring a lot to the table as far as giving the players the knowledge of what they need to do to get to that level and stick. But I think also, it can create a great environment for our fans. So I'm excited to be a part of this, and expecting to, work hard and have a good team, and hopefully get our fans rolling.
Awesome. Daryl, I see has joined us. Daryl, would you mind, can you turn the camera sideways so if we want TV? Perfect. Thank you. And since Daryl's joined us, Daryl, if you want to go ahead and give kind of your comments on Coach Whisenhunt and his hire.
Well, it's very similar to kind of our situation with Mike Nolan from Legacy USFL. You get a phone call from somebody you've had the opportunity to work with as a broadcaster for a number of years, and looked forward to the production meetings. You could tell about his passion of the game, the success he had, at each stop he was at. So when Ken called, I was very, very excited and hopeful that he was calling in regards to the Memphis opening. So when he let me know that it was something that he would love the opportunity to compete for and to be a part of the UFL moving forward, because everything he just said, there is. And we walk this fine line on this point all the time. We are a standalone professional football league, but we understand the developmental component that we can provide for our players, and it has gotten more in need in today's game than at any point. The reduction in time on task in the collegiate game, the reduction in time in task at the NFL level, because you're moving on to the next stage. If you don't grab somebody's attention as a new player immediately, it's the bus is not going to wait very long for you. So, our ability to have those players come into the UFL family and get them around coaches like Ken Whisenhunt, and then to know his connections throughout the football world and what that staff is going to look like. And we always talk about trying to get the best coaches who are the best teachers, that have the best contacts on our staffs in the UFL, because that's those little details, and you hear it from our guys all the time. There's a big push right now in the NFL, and you've seen the success from Detroit, and you've seen the success with the start that Washington has had, with staffs that have former players on their staff, and you can teach them the subtleties, the little nuances of the positions that you've acquired during your playing years. And so when you get people to be a part of your family, when they have a number of years in their background as a player, as a coach at multiple positions and multiple levels, that knowledge that he's going to be able to share with our players is something that's hard to replicate. So I look at the opportunity to have Ken Whisenhunt be a part of the UFL family, something very similar, with a Mike Nolan, who's similar in those regards. And to me, it continues to validate what everybody is doing in the UFL, all the hard work that's put in by so many people. Some people, in front of the scenes, some people behind the scenes, but this continues to validate, what we're building with the UFL. When you get somebody of the caliber of Ken Whisenhunt reaching out and asking if there's an opportunity for him with that Memphis job to interview for the head coaching position.
Awesome. Thank you, Daryl. We'll go ahead and take questions for either Ken or Daryl. If you would, just please use the raise your hand function on Zoom, and we'll call on you in that order. Frank, go ahead.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
I can. This is for you. When you're coming into a new head coach, where do you start in terms of uh getting to know the roster and everything? Like what's your first order of business as you try to hit the ground running?
Well, people in the organization that are familiar with them is where you start, from a standpoint of trying to figure out what your guys are like. It's really important getting a staff that understands that. And, then you can begin the process of working with these guys. I think that it's a little bit more difficult because there's so much flux in the roster and with guys coming in. But I can tell you this, it's difficult now for a lot of these younger guys to make it in the NFL just because of the gap of what it has grown. Plus, there's a real lack of individual time in all levels, which Daryl was talking about, with these guys being able to get the skills necessary to be successful. So to have something like this, I think is great for not only because it is, like he said, a standalone league where you're going to compete and you want to win and you want to build relationships but the big thing is you want to see your guys improve. And it's not that much different in the NFL. Look, if you don't play well in the NFL, you're out. So you're always trying to get better. But um, the biggest difference for this is there's just not as big of a group that stays from year to year. You don't have guys that have been here for 7 or 8 years, as a normal thing that are playing. So, you got to figure out what these guys can handle, how much time you've got to do the installs. But, the biggest thing is being able to work with them and teach them and, having the experience of the NFL of what they look for and, what are the things that you can make yourself valuable by doing. Like, for instance, if you're a tight end or on the offensive side of the ball, and you're a third tight end, I mean, you can make yourself valuable by playing special teams. And if you're that good at special teams, there's always room for a guy that's maybe a third tight end that can contribute significantly on that. So, that's going to be a big part of how we go forward is giving these guys opportunities. I mean, obviously we want to win, but we want to give these guys opportunities to pursue their career and get better.
Tyler, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Thanks very much for joining us and doing this with us. We're obviously excited to have somebody with your background coaching the Showboats next year. You talked about the development angle of this, and I think that's something that everybody preaches. And I wanted to ask you, this franchise specifically, it's not had a winning season in the last 2 years, and I recognize 2 years ago was a different league. But you look at this team, and you're coming in with a new roster. You've got a new GM and a new staff. Have you been given any kind of guarantees that if this team does not perform on the field, you're going to be here next year? Because it's a developmental league, and it's a league meant to boost guys in the NFL. But also, the last two coaches that have been here haven't succeeded, and they're not here anymore.
That's a good question. But I feel like I've lived my life the last 35, 40 years with no guarantee that I'm going to be back the next year. It's all based on merit. And I'm comfortable with that. I understand that. I mean, we're going to work our tails off to get these guys prepared. And we want to bring a great product to Memphis. I'm certainly aware of the past and what's going on, in this area. But I also know it can be a very strong area for a team if you can generate some excitement and you can play good football. So, there's a long way to go right now from where we are and where we need to be to. I know for sure we're going to have a good scheme offensively. We got to figure out defensively what we want to do. And then the biggest thing is getting these guys to fit into that system, and one of the things that you make a mistake doing is you try to fit a square peg in a round hole. In other words, you say, this is my offense and this is what we're going to do. Well, what we've been so successful with is, okay, what do our guys do? And this is how we're going to tweak our offense so that it'll give them a chance to be successful. And I think, that's what the reason I've been so fortunate is just because we've had success with guys because we've done it that way. And I'm excited to do that at this level because I do feel there's a real need for a developmental league. It's a standalone and it's going to be its own brand of football, but, as an attraction for really good players, which can create really good situations, is the chance that if they play well, they're in a system that's going to be one that's running the NFL. So that'll make their transition a little bit easier. Plus, they're going to get some of the concepts and schemes that we do, which are, and I'm not saying we're reinventing the game of football. I'm just saying we're working a system that's been very successful in the NFL. And, we've had a lot of success with players, and I'm excited to work with some of these guys, and hopefully we can do the same thing.
And to follow up on that point, I know you spent a lot of time in the last 2 years around college staffs, and I'm sort of curious how that has shaped what, the philosophy that you'll bring next spring in terms of, offensively, what it might look like.
Yeah, that's a good question. I had an offer to go to a head coaching job in college, and I didn't take it. And then, the opportunity arose where I wanted to just see what it was like, see what college football was like. And, one of the things that really popped out to me was the lack of individual time. I remember as a player in college how much time we spent in individual, just, your footwork, your timing, your hand placement, your route depths, working with the quarterbacks on individual kind of footwork and techniques. And, that kind of has gone away in college football. That's what I've seen, just because you don't have the time for it, because, obviously you only have so much time that's restricted. Plus, you get a guy that comes in for a year now, and then he may be gone the next year. So, even regardless of what you did record wise, it's more about what kind of opportunities they have. So, it's become a tough environment as well. But I think, ultimately what's so good about this is if these guys come in and they play well here, they're going to get a chance in the NFL, and they're going to have some of the skills that can help them get there. But also, I don't want to say that this is just about trying to get guys NFL ready, because there's going to be a lot of guys that, I've played with, I've coached with, that are really good players that can help this team, and they'll play for this team for a number of years, and then it'll be a good career, and they'll be excited, and hopefully we can have some success here.
Thank you.
James, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, thanks for doing this with us today. To kind of bounce off of what Tyler said a little bit, obviously Memphis struggled this past season, just 2 wins. With your general analysis of where this Memphis team is at right now, what are some of the positives you're looking forward to building upon heading into the 2025 season?
I haven't even looked at the team or what they, the players that we're going to have. There's a lot of that that's going to go on in the next few weeks. So, it's kind of hard for me to even address that at this point. I know that, I talked with Jim, the new GM, and I'm excited about working with him, and that we can build this thing going forward. But I'll say this: the one thing is, whatever we've got as a team, I think we're going to work hard to put their strengths first. What they can do. A lot of times when you go in, you see a lot of guys as coaches that go in and say, "This is my system, okay, and we're running this." And sometimes that's hard for your players to do. Whereas we've always felt, okay, look, this is our system, but if we can't run this, then let's tweak it or let's adjust it to what we do the best. And a lot of that's going to depend on, what we do with the offensive line, where that settles out, who the quarterback is, what our receivers look like, what our running backs, what our backs look like. And then, same thing on the defensive side of the ball. So I think that's one of the things that we really want to focus on is, getting our best team with what we've got, because you're right. They haven't been very successful the last couple of years, and that's something that we're dedicated to change.
Mark, you're up.
Thank you. I've got a question for Daryl Johnson. You mentioned the competition to fill this position. Can you speak more on the scope of that competition, and how long did it take, and how many candidates you may have considered?
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. So we kind of looked at it with the approach of wanting to be able to create opportunities for people within the UFL family. So we had kind of an internal list, and then we had an external list. And I would say once we kind of took all the people that had expressed an interest, we were probably somewhere around 12. And then we pared that one down and got it down to our top 3 internal, our top 3 external, and then took them through the interview process. And what was really exciting for Russ and I was the fact that our internal candidates were outstanding. Really, really good. They're very comfortable in kind of the spring environment and how that works. To listen to them on how they were going to build it. Being respectful of a team that they could leave, and kind of balancing what their staff would look like at that point. but it was really, really fun for us to get the opportunity to see them in that position, and had spoken to all of them, and they were thankful for the opportunity because they learned a lot from it as well, and felt they maybe could have been better in certain areas, but Russ and I both, felt that they did an outstanding job. And then it was just, again, it's a nice validation when you look at the external candidates and then the names that we had on that list, that were interested in becoming a part of this. And it goes back to what we've talked about here, the last couple of seasons. Year one in the USFL, we were having to call agents and players and really solicit their belief in what we were trying to build, and coerce them into allowing their players to come join us. Year two got a little bit better. And then, going into the merger last year, we have agents calling us, we have players reaching out to us. So we're going through that same process now with our coaches. We're getting head coaching candidates that are reaching out. We're getting, people that want to be part of the assistant coaching staffs. They've seen what we've built. They've seen the quality of football, and they would love to be a part of that. So, but I really feel that it was important for us to validate and reward, some of the coaches within our family, and give them the opportunity to go through that process. And they did not disappoint us. They were outstanding during the interviews.
Thank you.
Mark Perry, you're up.
All right. Hi, everyone. I got two questions for you, one for Coach and then one for Daryl. So for Coach, when do you think you're going to announce your coaching staff, and what do you think your coaching staff will look like? You'll have veteran coaches? Will you have some young up-and-coming people?
You know what? I think a little bit of both. I've been besieged by people wanting opportunities to come here and do this. So, as with anything, you're always going to go through these guys. There's some some you don't. Some you're getting off of recommendations. But we've had a lot of assistants that have worked with us that have gone on to head coaching jobs. So, I think it's exciting to be in that thing again where we're going to be able to help some guys improve and move up. And I'm excited about the process. We've got some ideas, but it's a process, I think, that you don't want to try to rush. You want to try to make sure that you can get the best guys and the ones that can give the most. And some of it's going to be guys that maybe are in the league already or in positions to do that, and some of it may be some guys from former NFL guys, or even some guys from the NFL. I've had some guys that are on a current NFL team that have expressed interest. So, some of that is, we're just going to have to see how it all works out, to be honest with you.
Gotcha. And then for Daryl, do you want us to talk about Jim Monos and bringing him on as a GM in the UFL?
Yeah. Obviously, very comfortable with the experience that Doug Whaley and Russ Brandon had with him, bringing him to Buffalo. I think the biggest thing for me was talking to Mickey Loomis, and Mickey saying, I didn't want to lose Jim, but I did not have the opportunity to elevate him on our staff. All I could do was give him a lateral move, and I didn't want to do that to him. I wanted him to have this opportunity, but Mickey did not want to lose him. He felt he was one of the better evaluators on the staff at that time. I've talked to Doug Marrone, who was with him in New Orleans. Every coach I talked to had the same perspective on Jim Monos. So I think we're getting somebody who was probably one of the key people in the 2009 Super Bowl championship New Orleans Saints, kind of helped along that line. I think Jari Evans might be one of the guys that Jim was big on, that got to New Orleans. And you're talking about a guy, that means he's very familiar with the small schools. Very similar to Steve Kaiser up in Michigan. I mean, Steve can go out and mine these little schools and pulls out great players. He did the same thing for the Rams in the NFL. So, I envision Jim being one of those guys, at least no stone unturned. Has great connections down into some of the smaller schools, which are important to us in the UFL. I think it's fun to watch the different ways the general managers approach building their roster, and how much they incorporate the smaller schools with an athlete who's very unique at that level. And you wonder why sometimes they didn't get an opportunity to play at a higher level. So I'm really excited for Ken to have the opportunity to work with Jim. A lot of people in the personnel department already familiar with Jim and having had the opportunity to work with him. my conversation with him, along with Russ Brandon, through the interview process, I was extremely impressed. So, I think that this is going to be an opportunity for Memphis to really be propped up on a really strong foundation with Ken and Jim. And one of the great things, and I know this has been a question here, to Ken, in regards to the roster, Dennis Polian has offered, anything that he can do from an assistant standpoint to help the guys get up to speed. And that shows that we bring in the right type of people to the UFL family. They love football. They want to see this venture be successful. And even when their path has ended with us and the page is turned and they're on to the next chapter in their life, they stay connected back to us. And for Dennis to offer that, to be able to help Coach get up to speed as quick as possible, to help Jim get a start on his evaluation of what the roster looks like, is going to be very, very helpful, getting this Showboats team off to a great start.
And Coach,
Thank you.
to follow up on that, I did receive a couple of questions from somebody that couldn't make it. Can you give your perspective on Jim and working with him, and if you guys had crossed paths in the past?
We have, but I didn't really know it. I mean, we've been in around the same guys and had the same ideas. I spent a good bit of time with him on the phone this morning, just talking about certain things, especially talking about that quarterback in Buffalo, and where we had kind of come across the path of that guy at the same time. So let me just say this: I agree with Daryl. I was super impressed with him. I love the way that he talks about the players. He obviously has a good feel for those guys. The guys that he's looking at, he's very passionate about it. And in my experience working with some pretty good personnel people in Arizona and Pittsburgh, that was the quality that we all really valued. It's kind of like, listen, we're going to argue about this, but we're all going to come to a consensus, and then that's the best way. It's my job to convince you this guy's a good player, and if you can do that, we're going to get the best player. If everybody has a voice, and he was fantastic. So I'm excited about that. We talked about a lot of players in the NFL, where we've had the same opinions or the same things that we look for, and even in just a short time, I'm excited to work with him, and I think he'll do a great job for this franchise.
John, you're up.
Ken, sounds like you beat out a lot of competition here to get this job. What kind of walk me through the process of how you wanted this job, and what drew you to Memphis and to the UFL?
Well, I think it was Daryl. Daryl and I have talked in the past before about this, and it didn't work out. And coming out of college last year and winning the SEC at Alabama, I felt like I didn't want to go back to college from that standpoint, because Nick was stepping down, and I just was looking for something that would be a little bit different. And like I said, Daryl and I had talked in the past about this type of situation, not obviously with Memphis, but so I thought, I'll give him a call and see if there's anything that might possibly be open, because I'm intrigued by it. Once again, I think I go back to I love being able to work with players and see them grow and develop. When we were in Arizona, we had a guy named Kurt Warner who, when I first walked in there, nobody believed in doing. And he came into my office one day and sat down and was slamming his fist on the table saying, if you give me a fair opportunity, I'll win this job. And, and to me, that struck a chord, because I was kind of that guy too. I was the guy as a player in the NFL. I hung on for 8 years and I had a good career, 9 years and I had a good career, but, I had to fight every year to get back on the roster. So, that kind of back and forth, and then to see Kurt have that success with us in Arizona kind of has always been something that's special to me. And, so, excuse me. So being able to work with guys like this and be able to help them advance their career to wherever they want to get to. But I also think it's important that we put a good product on the field for the home team, because there's nothing like winning, but there's nothing like winning when you have a group of people that support you, like I know Memphis has done in the past, and I know they haven't had that opportunity. So those were some of the things that really excited me. And, there's there's a lot of young coaches, there's a lot of older coaches, there's guys that, I've been friends with that, would love to get this opportunity. So I'm excited to see where we end up with the staff, but I think we'll have a good one.
Thank you.
Arlington.
Hey, Coach, I got a question for you, and then also have a question for Daryl before I head out. Coach Ken, first off, welcome to the UFL. The question I have for you is, I wanted to know what were you going to give to the fans in Memphis, because they wanted to see a winner. They want to see something progressive with this organization. And for Daryl, excuse me, is there a way that we can, at some point, as we get on this future with the UFL, move away from development into making this a major spring football league? Thanks.
Okay, I'll go first. I think that my excitement is working with these players and trying to build a product that will be good for the city. I think, after having worked in Pittsburgh and seeing the interaction between the players and the fans is incredible. It became that way in Arizona when we had some success. And, for me, that's something that I think is very important, because then it becomes something about a family, something about a group. And so, that's something that is important to me. And I think you do that by how you build your team, the right guys, and then how you go about playing. And, we have had success with that, coming into Arizona, which was a team that had never won. We built it that way, and we ended up, having some good success. But what was more important to me was the fan base and how excited they were. So we're going to try to do that. We're going to try to recreate that. I've had the experience with it, but we're going to put a good product on the field. And if I don't, then Daryl's going to fire me, and that's the way it's going to work. So, but we're looking forward to getting the opportunity to do that.
You got plenty of time. You got plenty of time to get that rebuilt. I think the big thing, Arlington, is like I said before, you're kind of walking that fine line of, being a standalone professional football league, and then also having that developmental component for the guys. I think we all wonder, what does it take, and what is really the vision to be that type of league that you're talking about? I think the hardest part is something that Coach touched on. The way our rosters change, from season to season. If we're doing our job correctly, we're sending people to the NFL. So we're creating roster turnover as one of our goals. And you heard Ken talk about, when you get great teams, it's that consistency and that core of guys that you can grow and expand around and add pieces to, as opposed to starting a rebuild every season. So, there's a lot of different ways to look at this. Relationships with the NFL, I think would be beneficial for us. I don't think it's a make or break deal. But I think everybody, when you think of spring football, goes back to NFL Europe back in the day, where Kurt Warner came from. I mean, Kurt's one of the poster boys of what a league like this can do. Adam Vinatieri, Leroy Glover. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of the great NFL players, the Hall of Fame caliber NFL players that were products of an alternative league. Do you have to have that working relationship like NFL Europe had? I don't think so. I think we've done a heck of a job here the last 3 seasons. 2 with Legacy USFL, 1 with Legacy XFL, and now the UFL together. I think the biggest thing to get this to where we needed it to be was the merger to happen last season. That was one of the big pivot points where everybody talked about the quality of football this season. We noticed it right away during onboarding. You had 16 teams go to 8. Well, guess what? You're going to have your guys walk in. You're going to watch a team walk in, and you're going to see an athlete, a football player at every spot. And that's what we saw in onboarding last year. So we were really excited to go into training camp, knowing that the depth in the offensive line, the depth at the quarterback position, all those key spots that I think have created struggles for the spring football landscape in the past, we could see that we were going to have much more depth. And then to talk to the coaches and say, you know, the quality of play is so much better. The windows are a little bit smaller for our quarterbacks to throw into. You don't really find that one spot on the field where you feel like you have a mismatch and you can attack it. So, you know, that was a huge step for us. So I really think that what we were able to accomplish last year, number one, eliminating the competition, consolidating the two leagues into one, and now start to build that on a foundation. And now time will tell where we get to. But you know, when you ask, you know, when can we become that unique spring football league? I think we took a massive step last season with the merger, and I think we're only going to be better this year. I don't think everybody realizes how hard it was to put that league together and to kick that season off and to have the success we had with the timeline that we were working with. And again, I mentioned it earlier, the amount of great people that worked their tails off to pull off season one in the UFL was really impressive to watch and to be a part of. Now in the off season, to have a real off season where we have a much calmer cadence, we can structure things in the support areas the way that we wanted to in year one. We just had to make sure football was good. Now we can get into all the little areas that will make the experience great for everybody. So we expect to take another really big step here in season two, followed up a really great start in season one.
Oscar, I know you mentioned to me you couldn't do the hand raise function on Zoom, so if you want to go ahead and ask your questions, go for it.
Thank you very much, Andy. A couple of questions for Coach Ken Whisenhunt and one for Darryl. First with the coach. Nice to see you again, Coach. We met you last year in Alabama, in the facilities of the Crimson Tide.
Yep.
Welcome to the UFL. And tell me, what is your opinion about this big impact of this league? Not only with the players, with the fans here in Mexico, we follow the league. What are your thoughts about this great impact? That's the first question.
You know, I think whenever the quality of the football is going to get better just because of a lot of the things that have been put in place as they go forward. So, you know, you're going to be able to see guys and you're going to be able to identify with guys that are playing on that franchise and you're going to be able to, you know, cheer for them. And I think that's a big thing. The name recognition, you know, is going to be good. And I think, you know, we have to somehow create an environment of family, you know, when we go to play in Memphis. And that's going to be something that we harp on with these guys all the time because that's important. It's important to me. It's important to the game. And, you know, it can be good for these guys. You know, there's no telling what kind of opportunities can come out of it for them. Even if they're with the UFL team for 3 or 4 years and they go in and they play, you know, it can create a great family type atmosphere, which is so good. So, you know, that's what we want to see. That's what we're working to do. It's important to me because, like I said, in Pittsburgh, that environment is that way. In Arizona, it was that way. And it's something special. So hopefully it'll become something that, you know, our fans are engaged and look forward to our game day and to our players.
Okay, thank you very much. And the other one, we are in the middle of the week for Georgia versus Alabama in Tuscaloosa. My question is, how was that moment when Coach Nick Saban said to you, I'm going to retirement?
It was tough. He came in and he started and then he stopped. And when he stopped, you know, when he was addressing the team, I said, uh-oh, he's probably not going to do it. But, you know, he's probably not going to come back. But, you know, he did an outstanding job there, obviously. And, you know, he's doing a great job now in what he's doing. But it was just, I feel very lucky that I had a chance to be around him and his staff and the team last year. It was incredible to win the SEC. You know, it was a big deal. So I've got Super Bowl rings and now I've got an SEC ring. So, you know, I'm very lucky, but it was a great opportunity for me just, you know, seeing how he ran the team. And there's a lot of similarities to what we're talking about, what Darryl's talking about with how we prepare the team, what we expect of the team. That's going to be something that, you know, I want to make sure we expect that out of our players is that we respect our fans and that we're doing everything we can to try to make their experience the best it can be, as well as, you know, being part of the family.
Okay. Thank you very much, Coach. Gracias, like we say in Spanish. I'm sure we watching again in the United States, now in the UFL. Welcome again. Thank you very much. And now for my amigo Daryl. How are you, Daryl? Thank you very much for this conference, Andy. Thanks so much. And Daryl, my question is about it's outside the UFL because today we have this sad news about this disease in Brett Favre. He talking about he have the Parkinson disease. Could you say some words to all the fans in of football, obviously to Brett Favre? Thank you very much, Daryl. Gracias.
Hola, Oscar. How are you doing? So good to see you. Yeah, for me, it hit hard earlier this year when we lost Larry Allen, and probably to a cardiac situation. And when we get into Parkinson's and anything that deals with brain health for our players, there's always that concern about the impacts and the physicality of this game. Having had the opportunity to play against Brett Favre, having had the opportunity to sit down in a production meeting with Brett Favre, I don't know if there's anybody that ever had more fun playing the game, had more fun teaching the game, had more fun talking about the game. He is just a joy. And the highlight of everything that he had done throughout his career, the one that I'll never forget, is his Monday night performance the day his father passed away, and how he went out and played that game is just absolutely amazing. So obviously some sad news to hear. I think one of the things that everybody in the NFL football family has done as we move forward and medical advances progress is we like to see some of the numbers, with us as former football players compared to the general population in regards to ALS, in regards to Parkinson's, in regards to a number of different things that we could be dealing with. I'm sure that that's something that will gain a little bit of attention here now when you get somebody as high profile as Brett that now has come public with some of his struggles. So I wish him all the best moving forward. It is a sad day, in the world of football. That is something that all of us will come to terms with. But hopefully, as we've gotten some of these challenging stories that have come to us, it's really kind of fanned the flames of progress to push that player health and safety further forward to anticipate that these could be consequences that the guys could face, and what can we do once that happens. I think that's an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. But every once in a while, we need a little bit of cure because we didn't get enough of the prevention. So what do we do now as a football family to make sure that when we get one of our members in a situation like Brett's in right now, what can we do to rally around him and support him and to make sure that he has a quality of life that he deserves moving down the stretch.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Daryl. Gracias. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Andy. Have a great day. Gracias.
Anytime, Oscar. We got time for about two more here, so we'll go with James and then John, and then we're going to have to wrap it up.
Thanks, Andy. My question is for Daryl. Thanks for doing this with us today, Daryl. As always, Memphis has been without a head coach for about a month and a half, give or take, with DiFilippo having stepped away in early August. We have seen some players resign with letters of intent and whatnot. Is there any insight you can give to us on, who was making those decisions or what went into those resignings over the last month?
Yeah, I think the big thing with the structure of our contracts and the vulnerability of where we could have been with another competitive league out there, we wanted to make sure that we had a good foundation for the new head coach and the general manager when they came in. That they wouldn't have a roster that lost several of the key players. So we made a decision that was in the best interest of the league moving forward. And we sat down with coaches on the staff of Memphis and just asked them to help us structure something that would leave Memphis on a good foundation, because we wanted to be thorough. And that was his biggest charge was we need to do this quickly, but we need to make sure we do it the right way. So that was the most important thing for us, and that was one of the elements we wanted to have in place. That we didn't want to have our head coach and our general manager, come into a situation where there was the potential to lose players to a competitive league.
Thanks, Daryl.
All right, John, go ahead.
Daryl, you kind of touched on it there, but do you feel like compared to maybe this time last year or later that you almost have a head start going into this second season of the UFL now? And maybe what are some of the positives of having that first season under your belt now as you go into season 2?
Yeah, I think the big thing is just not the merging of everything, and then really trying to get everybody, headed in the same direction. Russ always talks about pulling the tarp the same direction. You're doing that last year, but it's a lot easier to pull that tarp this year. So just having spent one full season together and getting to know everybody, the relationship and the camaraderie is at a completely different level, and that was something that we experienced in football probably sooner than any other element of our league, because we were together in person quicker and earlier than a lot of the other areas. So we knew that as the season progressed and more people had the opportunity to be around each other face to face and in person, as opposed to remotely via Zoom, that we would start to make strides. And then I think everybody felt that the ability for us, being able to have that regular cadence for a full off season, and to learn from where our shortfalls were in season 1. We can talk about the lateness of the merger. We can talk about a lot of different things, but we still had a job we needed to do, and we still found out some areas where we could do things probably a little bit more efficient. We could be better in. So this full off season is going to give us an opportunity to implement those policies and those strategies. So I think that everybody is in a much more positive frame of mind. There was so much unknown last year, where this year there's excitement of moving forward. So I just, like we talked about it, the greatest thing for spring football was the merger of the 2 legacy leagues. And I really feel that season 2 will be the year that we can demonstrate that. I think season 1 was just making sure we got football propped up and all the key necessary components in place to have a successful season 1. But now, how far can we advance that? How far can we push that in season 2? And that continues to build the excitement within the UFL family.
Thank you all for doing this.
We're gonna go ahead and wrap up. If I could, Coach, if you could just kind of one last message, kind of what's your message to the fans in Memphis about supporting this team and the kind of product you're going to put on the field for them?
Well, I feel very good about where this franchise is and what the goals are of this franchise after even just being here a couple of days. And that's from talking with Russ and Daryl. I think to hit on what he said, it's a great point that, they're much further along than they were last year. But what I would say for our fans and what we'd like to get going forward is that we're focused on being successful and winning. That's the thing that brings everybody together, and we're going to work our tails off to do that. I think that we haven't got a defensive staff right now yet, but I know offensively the product that we're going to put out there is some of the same ones you see on Sundays now. And we're going to try to get the players that can make that work. But I'm super excited, even because of what Daryl said about how much further along they are this year, that we can put a product on the field that will make Memphis happy. That's something that's important to me. I've said that a couple of times in this already, how important I think the relationship between the team and the fans is. And it's something that is important to me, and that's going to be made known to our players. And, it's going to be something that we work hard. I mean, obviously, it's about winning, and that's what we want to do. But I think it's also a little bit about your team and your fans and how they bond together as well.